Yeah, hello. I have the pleasure of introducing Chris Brown. He's been an InfoSec trainer and a cyber security IR and analyst and threat hunter for the past 18 years. He teaches not only SuriCata, but Zeek and protocol and packet analysis for Core Light, and also to the U.S. Department of Defense through the Focal Point Federals Academy. He's been working with SuriCata since 2015 and comes from a family of technical and vocational trainers. So let's give a warm welcome to Chris.
Okay. Hopefully Windows detects things okay. USB for the audio. Cool. Okay. All right. Good morning, everyone. How you doing? Everybody hear me okay? All right. My talk is going to be on SuriCata's integration with cyber ranges, and I've got no code. I've got no programming experience, so I tell everybody I'm OPP. That's other people's Python, other people's Perl, other people's PowerShell. So that's a joke. Anyway, so I can pick those things apart. I can tell what they're doing. I can kind of get them to do what I need them to do. But yeah, after looking at some of the talks over the past few days, I'm like, oh man, yeah, okay. So if you're looking for code, I've got SuriCata rules, a few of that. But anyway, here's some pictures of me and who I am. I won't go into all that because I'm going to try to attempt to squeeze a 45-minute presentation into 20 minutes and see if that works okay. But I should explain the pirate pictures. I've been traveling internationally and domestically, teaching for various companies and doing consulting and things over the past 30 years. But when COVID hit in 2020, March of 2020, it wasn't like travel just kind of coasted down. It like totally scuttled. I mean, it dropped out to zero. And for the first 3 or 4 months, I was like, oh, this is cool being home. After that, I was like, this is not cool. And teaching over Zoom and things is very challenging. So in order not to go like, I think they call it cabin fever, crazy with being at home, I joined me, my wife, and our 16-year-old daughter to a pirate crew out of Clearwater, Florida. So we travel around Florida and do parades and charities and things like that. And that's what the pirate picture things are about. Anyway, these are the past companies I've worked for the past 30 years. It's quite an array of organizations. I didn't take a full-time dive into cybersecurity until 2004. And I was contract teaching for Microsoft at the time. Another Microsoft trainer walked in my class after class one day, threw down the cuckoo's egg and said, you seem to have an interest in information security. I bet you'd like reading this book. I read that book and totally, that was it. I was done. I'm like, I don't want to do anything else for the rest of my career except cybersecurity. Or back then it was information security. Cyber wasn't really a term. Anyway, one of my last things I did at FireEye in 2018 was I tracked down Clifford Stoll and I called him at home. And he answered. His exact words were, I don't recognize your phone number. Are you law enforcement? And I think he was half joking. If anyone knows Clifford Stoll, I mean, you know, he's kind of out there. But I said, no, Mr. Stoll, I just read your book like back in 2003 and it changed my life and I just wanted to tell you thank you. He said, oh, I'll be happy to talk to you. And after 3 hours, he said, next time you're out here, just give me a call and I'll sign your book if you want. So I did. I went out to meet him. That was him in his home in 2018. And now I've got a picture with Victor. So I got that here. So when people ask me, hey, what do you really know about SuriCon? I say, well, there's that guy right there. So anyway. There's some caveats and disclaimers. I only put this in because my opinions and things are not necessarily that of my employer. Typos, omissions, anything like that, mistakes are all on me. Yeah, the one at the bottom. So the academic institutions, and I know we're not really supposed to talk about like commercial companies and things, but I didn't really find a lot of open source cyber range resources out there, so I named a few companies that's doing that kind of thing, but I get no referral fees to them. I'm not associated to them at all. I'm just kind of, I brought them into the presentation to talk about capabilities. How many of you have heard of cyber ranges before? A few of you? Okay. So, yeah, you might be more familiar, like if anyone's been through the military or carries around firearms or anything. Qualifications on ranges and military type applications are, they've been around for quite some time. Professional flight crews, like pilots, airlines, they have these big simulators and pilots have to go, you know, qualify in those kind of things. Those have been out for many years. When I went and looked for a formal definition of what cyber ranges are, this is just kind of, you know, a textbook definition. Cyber ranges are interactive simulated representation of real-world networks. So I don't know if you can really see it. That was from University of Texas, San Antonio's cyber range. And right in the middle, they've got like some commercial vendors in there. So commercial vendors like to contribute to cyber ranges because then students get using them and then their names are familiar and then, you know, they get out in the workplace and they're like, hey, I used Palo Alto here or I used McAfee there, which I guess now is Trellix, but, and the one in the middle is QRadar. But anyway, I've got a lot of links in this. If anyone's interested in any of the links, instead of like having to take a picture, just raise your hand. I'll go out to the link in Chrome and put up the QR code if you want to like go right out to it. Or you can go to Discord and the presentation will be out there. All right. Does anyone remember these? Old testing kind of Scantron number 2 pencil, you know, put your answer here kind of thing. And statistically speaking, if you didn't really know the answer, as long as you went down column B or C, you're pretty good. No, anyway. Or the A, B, C, D, multiple choice kind of questions. That doesn't, so I don't know, I tried to find a picture of doing something craft-wise, like building a chair or, you know, doing something woodworking or mechanical. Also, like from a Suricata perspective, I think anyone who's used Suricata, you know, as soon as you spin it up and you see some lines that are in red, you're gonna have to clear that out and then, you know, get the output that you're looking for. In that particular case, when I looked at those lines in red, I'm like, okay, well, this PCAP, Suricata needs permissions to this PCAP, or oh no, this rule set isn't right, we got to point over to that rule set. But, you know, answering that on a test versus, you know, putting it together in your head and actually doing it like live, especially when you're got your employer behind you going, I can't get Suricata to work, you better fix this. That's two different things. So, along the same lines of thinking, being able to read or write these, does anyone recognize what that is? All right, a few of you, if you're into electronics at all, that's a schematic. And my dad was an electronics engineer for Raytheon for 30 years. And I remember growing up at night, he would just pour over these at the kitchen table. He'd have stacks of these. And I'd get up and I'm like, Dad, what are you doing? He's like, well, the only time I get peace and quiet with you kids around here is at night. I get up and I study these schematics because this is what I have to build for my day job. And I'm like, okay. So I started looking over his shoulder and around, I don't know, a very early age, I like, okay, that's a capacitor, that's a resistor, that's a transistor. You know, I didn't really know much about those kind of things. But he would say, hey, being able to draw this kind of thing out and write that has absolutely, I mean, that's got some bearance on building whatever it is you're going to build, but you need different skills to put together, like, you know, satellite communication. That's a rack of gear from Viasat. And, you know, putting that together for something like a Navy ship, totally different set of skills. I mean, you need, yeah, you got to be able to read schematics, but there's like a lot of other things to go into. And not everything that's on that ship is satellite related, but where you see some of the domes, well, some of that's artillery, but you know, the antenna arrays and some of the big domes in the back, that's the satellite gear. So, taking this forward a little bit. Simulations and immersive environments, those have been around for quite some time. That's for real. I know the first time I looked at that, I'm like, man, someone needs to clean up all those boxes in that room. Those are lunar landing simulators that were used during the Apollo years. And if I kind of get the laser pointer here, right there would be the equivalent of what we call today like white cell, or the instructors or the people that are on the range that are watching what's going on or pushing buttons to say, okay, well, let's throw this at the astronauts and see what they do with that. So that's real, and if anyone's seen the movie Apollo 13, that wasn't a picture from Apollo 13. This is like the live, or that was a real picture. But they had aspects of that in the movie, if you've seen that. This was not for real. It should have been. Does anybody remember the 80s Star Trek II Wrath of Khan? I've told every employer that I've had in the past 5 or 10 years, if I could teach cybersecurity classes in general on Star Trek II and the Kobayashi Maru and the Wrath of Khan, I'd do it. And most of them said, please don't. But has everybody, how many of you are familiar with this Kobayashi Maru scene? Only a few, good. Because at the risk of not having a lot of time, let's see if I can. This is only 3 minutes, so this would be a simulations kind of thing. I'm gonna have to see if, oh, I hear audio, that's good.
Captain's log, stardate 8130.3. Starship Enterprise on training mission to Gamma Hydra, Section 14. Coordinates 2287-4. Approaching neutral zone. All systems normal and functioning.
Leaving Section 14 for Section 15.
Stand by. Project parabolic course to avoid entering neutral zone.
Aye, Captain.
Course change projected.
Captain, I'm getting something on the distress channel.
On speakers.
Imperative. This is the Kobayashi Maru. 19 periods out of all Tier 6. We have struck a gravitic mine and have lost all power. Our hull is penetrated and we have sustained many casualties.
This is the Starship Enterprise. Your message is breaking up. Can you give us your coordinates? Repeat, this is the Starship...
Enterprise, our position is Gamma Hydra, Section 10.
In neutral zone.
Hull penetrated. Life support systems failing. Can you assist us, Enterprise? Can you assist
Data
us?
on Kobayashi Maru.
Subject vessel is third-class Teutonic fuel carrier, crew of 300 passengers.
Damn. Mr. Sulu, plot an intercept course.
May I remind the captain that if a starship enters the zone,
I'm aware of my responsibilities, mister.
estimating 2 minutes to intercept. Now entering the neutral zone.
Warning, we have entered neutral zone.
We are now in violation of treaty, Captain.
Stand by transporter room ready to beam survivors aboard.
Captain, I've lost their signal.
Alert. Sensors indicate 3 Klingon cruisers bearing 316 Mark IV, closing fast.
Visual. Battle stations. Activate shields.
Shields activated.
Inform the Klingons we are on a rescue mission.
They're jamming all the frequencies, Captain.
Klingons on attack course and closing.
We're
Klingons
over our
on
heads.
attack
Mr.
course.
Sulu, get us out of here.
I'll try, Captain.
Alert. Klingon torpedoes activated. Alert.
Evasive action. Engineering, damage report.
Main energizer hit, Captain.
Engage auxiliary power. Prepare to return fire.
Shields collapsing, Captain.
Fire all phasers.
No power to the weapons, Captain.
Captain, it's no use. We're dead in space.
Activate escape pods. Send out the log buoy. All hands abandon ship. Repeat. All hands abandon ship.
All right, open her up.
Any suggestions, Admiral?
Prayer, Mr. Savick. The Klingons don't take prisoners.
All right, that's about as much time as I could afford to that. But if I could run the whole 2.5 hours, oh, we'd stop every 15 minutes and I'd say there's a cybersecurity principle. No, anyway. Yeah, so that was a simulation, obviously. And that's the kind of thing that when I see cyber ranges in place, like especially with tools like SuriCata or something that is more representative of real world of what you'd really find if you were on an incident response team, a security analyst team, a SOC, team member, that's where I think training should be, at least, from what I've observed over the past few years. Now, with enough time in a range environment, the object, by the way, did anyone know what the real purpose of that test was? I mean, I know it was the movies, but do you think she made the right call in going into the neutral zone to try to beam aboard the survivors of the Kobayashi Maru? Some of you say yes. Say, what's that? It does, exactly. That's right. It was a test. They call it a no-win scenario test. It doesn't matter if you choose the right answer or what you think the right answer or the wrong answer is. The Academy wanted to evaluate your performance in something like that. I mean, and that's kind of the thing here. Which one of these hosts are bad? Well, I've been around long enough that I would think they're all bad. No. SuriCata, and that's something that we love specifically at Corelight. We've got Zeek and SuriCata. For those of you that know Zeek pretty much was founded on the foundation of protocol splitting or packet splitting into protocol logs and not making a decision if it's good or it's bad. If it's logged, it happened. But there's plenty of customers that are like, yeah, well, we really need some kind of component to tell us if something is good or bad, or at least make a recommendation on what to do with what's in these logs, hence having SuriCata. So, are those bad hosts? Are these bad hosts? If any of you got jazzed up about seeing the Westworld reference, that's old Bill from Westworld. I don't know if that's a bad host or not. He's been around for a long time. Does anyone recognize what that Men in Black? Yeah, that was their firing range, basically. But yeah, the little girl in there, that was the one Will Smith went after and said, oh no, she's got to be taken out right away. He had his reasons, but anyway. All right, so here's what things really kind of boil down to, that rule. Now, I kind of amended this rule a little bit. I'm sure one of you in here probably wrote that rule. It's not an emerging threat rule, but I happen to notice on the capture the flag that one of your groups, I made this, it was close enough to what I kind of thought I wanted to get to, which is a rule for long DNS request, basically. I know the first time I saw something like that, I just freaked out. I mean, I'm like, holy crap, that doesn't look like a normal DNS request to me. However, let me go over here. You see that? Of all the products that know how to weasel out of your network and get around firewalls and access control lists and burrow out to the real world to get like updates and antivirus signatures and things like that, not just McAfee, but Sophos and Trend Micro, they all, all that traffic looks like that. Well, that looks surprisingly a lot like that. Now that is bad. That's 100% not cool. But long DNS request, an analyst would need to look at that, or an incident responder, and they need to know when to wave off and when to engage, or what to really track down. And this kind of thing isn't new. Hiding in like DNS or doing command and control over DNS or ICMP or bless you or anything else, that's been around for quite some time. So who are these ranges designed for? I won't go through everybody on that list, but a lot of people in cybersecurity can take advantage of ranges. So there are a bunch of support groups that it takes. You know, they say it's not just a single person, it takes a whole village. It takes a lot of people to contribute to making a range work. That was not my definition. I got that out of a Europe Merchant Marine group that was putting together the definitions of what they would use a cyber range for and who they would need to run it. That one, Orange Team, I'm currently reading a book about how the development of self-driving cars came about. And this was back in 2012, 2010 kind of time range. But they had something called an Orange Team. And the Orange Team was specifically designed to throw events out in front of self-driving cars and see how the car would do. Like, you know, put a big picture frame on the back of a bicycle and dart it out in front of the car and see whether the car hits it or whether the car can stop, and kind of look at it and go, is that a truck? Is that a painting? Is that a person? So, yeah, I could see that on a cyber range. I could see people that maybe aren't necessarily red teamers, but people that will inject events into a range and just purposely evaluate the captain. You know, whoever's looking at that, see what they're going to do with that. Okay, cyber ranges vary in scope and range and size and all kinds of you know, capabilities and things. When when the talk was graciously accepted, I first went to open source. I'm like, there's got to be some open source ranges out there. Not so much. I mean, I found one that was put together by a few guys at Nessus. That they GitHubbed, and it's called a Sec DevOps range, but it hasn't been updated since 2020. I don't know what's going on with it, and unfortunately, it did not have SuriCata on it at all. There are a lot of academic institutions, universities like colleges that have cyber ranges. That's not an all-encompassing list, but that's, you know, there are a lot of universities doing that kind of thing. I was able to verify at least 2 of them had SuriCata on there. More may have it, but I reached out to a lot of those, and they like either totally didn't get back to me, or some of them are like, yeah, we're not going to let you on our range. Or, how old are you? Are you a student here? I'm like, yeah, never mind. And so, defense contractors. This is major business for defense contractors. A lot of them do have cyber ranges. I smiled when I saw Boeing's Korea. They called it a cyber range in a box. I don't know how many virtual machines you can run in that one box. I mean, to me, I think a range would need to be 50, 100, 1,000 endpoints, and that's the kind of thing that, I don't know, you can kind of try to squeeze that in one appliance, but there are organizations out there. I just picked 3. SimSpace has a pretty good-looking range. They actually let me on their entire range for like 10 days just to take it for a drive, and I was pretty impressed because there's different points in that range where you just click on nodes, it brings you right into a virtual operating system, and you do what you got to do while range operators are watching, and that's and evaluating performance. They have SuriCata. And their focus on SuriCata was more along the lines of the sensors are already out there, the signatures are already preloaded, everything's going into either Splunk or Elastic, and you use that for, you know, alert, like reading and usage. SimSpace also, at least last year, or this year, and I think the year before, but they do the infrastructure for global cyber games. If you're even thinking about doing anything with cyber ranges, it's pretty cool if you can at least look over the shoulder or watch a cyber range in operation. That is, it wasn't the entire event, but that's about 5 hours of what different teams were doing on the cyber range. Peter Hay, I actually followed him over at Focal Point. He left and went to SimSpace, and I went into Focal Point, and I still teach for Focal Point today, 5 to 7 times a year. Corelight lets me do that, mainly because they hold my clearances. So Corelight can take advantage of the clearances, but they keep it active. Anyway, if you want to check that link out, that's pretty cool, just to watch what's going on at the time. Rangeforce is another company that I talked to. They have a community edition. You can sign up for their cyber range things for free. They have about 4 or 5 modules. None of the 4 or 5 modules had Suricata in it, but I did talk to their senior director of product engineering, and he said, oh yeah, we have Suricata. It's just in the paid content, not the free content. So they they appear to be different focus than SimSpace though. That video is about 20 minutes from a guy called Security Ninja, and he walks right through the entire Suricata challenge. So I have been meaning to ask Rangeforce if they have changed it since he put that video out. That's about a year old or so, because, you know, it's not cool if you can just watch a video and then go over to the range and do the same things and woo, you're good. But they were more CLI, you know, they wanted you to be able to go into the JSON file, the Eve JSON file. They wanted you to write a rule that would be able to drop traffic, but not drop legitimate traffic, and those can be, you know, 2 different things. And then the third company I talked to, and this was just a few days before coming out here, my email got mixed up in their, you know, contact us kind of thing. But I was surprised. I got a ping from their CRO, or Chief Revenue Officer. He's like, what are you doing out in Athens? I said, I'm just giving a talk on cyber ranges. He said, oh, you need to, hey, well, here's some of our stuff. I'm like, yeah, all right. But anyway, they seem pretty cool too. Totally cloud-based. They've got a lot of different offerings. When I asked him if they had Suricata, he said, we don't have it, but if a customer requests it, we'll put it in with no problem. I said, okay, well, that's good. I think one of the biggest challenges from the companies I've talked to and looked at is they get really narrow focused, lasered in on Suricata as IDS or IPS. They don't think about all the other things Suricata can do. And it would be cool to see that integrated a little more in ranges. I know I'm a trainer, and yeah, there's death by PowerPoint or death by Google Slides, and walls of text are not good at all. But I just listed out a few of the things that you can track on cyber ranges. I won't read the entire list, but tracking that's an example taken from Cloud Range. They do really good at tracking and assessment and things. Let's see. The last thing I wanted to point out, some ranges are having a tough time. I mean, they've built an entire business about doing cyber ranges, but that's not a lot of runway with some organizations. So some of them are now getting into risk assessment, meaning you bring your own rules, you bring your own Suricata configuration, they load it up, they throw traffic at it, and they tell you, you know, how the performance is on that. Now that last bullet point is a little deeper. I don't think they're quite into rule profiling yet, but that's another thing. All right, a lot of teams can participate in this, individuals can participate in this. The very last slide I had, I really thought about saying the call to action is there needs to be like an open source cyber range, but they're complicated. And in order to make it available to everyone, I don't know if Google or Amazon or who's those other guys, Azure, I don't know if they're just gonna donate range time, you know, for that. I would love it if they would. But anyway, if anyone is interested, you can start really small. It's not exactly a cyber range, but I know Eric's team at Stamus, they've got Selks, and you can load that up. You get another VM, just start doing TCP replay with PCAPs and see what you can get, and then kind of build out from there. Now, some of you may be a little interested in this. Range companies need help. Maybe not necessarily full-time help, but they are totally open to usually, you know, 1099. In the US, we call it 1099 contracting, or basically you provide some content and some ideas about how to work IDS into their range or expand their offerings, and there's some money in that. And so, okay, I don't have my email address for some obvious purposes, but you can contact Jeff or Kelly or anybody at OISF who knows how to reach me Or if you just want to come grab me offline, I'll give you my address. I just didn't want to put it right out in the slides, because every time I do foreign travel, I got to fill out these 3 pages of forms saying I'm going to this country, I'm doing this, I'm doing that. It goes back to focal point through CDW, and a government person says, okay, well, we know what he was doing, kind of thing. Thank you for your time, and that's it. Does anybody have any questions? Oh, yes, Peter.
Hello. Test. Yeah, a quick question.
Sure.
Thank you very much for the presentation. I've always been interested in those cyber ranges. More of a kind of interested. I'll definitely contact you offline. But yeah, that was a great. You can play that on later.
Yeah.
But you mentioned that cyber ranges are complicated, and they are, because you need to spin up a bunch of things, and I participate in live fire exercises too, so it's a lot of prep and automation and all that stuff. But you also mentioned that they're willing to hear and get help or ideas, for example, and things like that. So how open, from your experience, how open are these cyber ranges to, hey, I'm a person A, I have a few suggestions for you, or hey, we're from SuriCata, we have a few suggestions for you, or how can we help? Would that work actually, or that would be like a 18-month process?
I don't think it'd necessarily be an 18-month process, as long as they've already got SuriCata out there.
Okay.
If it takes a little deeper, they're new to SuriCata, or maybe they've got a commercial IPS, IDS, NSM kind of product, and this SuriCata would be new, probably more, involved. But from the organizations I've talked to, they're very open.
I'm asking just because it surely involves a lot of engineering around introducing a new tool, right? And all that stuff. So just curious from your perspective, they're still open and doing that. That's very cool to hear. I'll definitely be contacting you. Thank you.
Yeah, no problem. Yes, they're very open, because at the end of the day, they're going to make money on that from the range, but they need the help. All of them do. Yes.
Hi, great talk.
Hi. Oh, thank you.
We were actually looking at something that has a platform approach towards a range, and especially anchored in open source. So I didn't find anything out there, and I think that definitely is a need. And along the entire data pipeline, from visibility upstream, where you can plug in a SuriCata, a Zeek, or an endpoint, or whatever generator tool, plug that, put it in the next stage, so to say, for processing, and up to all the way to the response end of things. Something like that models the entire end-to-end life cycle, and that is pluggable. We have these great one-offs like Detection Lab, for example, or Malcolm, but it's highly integrated. It's very tightly coupled. It makes these links between the applications incredibly tight and not replaceable. So having a platform approach to a cyber range, where we can just plug these things on top, the different applications, obviously open source first. That would be something that I've been looking for a long time, not sure if it exists. And coming up with something coordinated, I think, because everybody wants this in some fashion, could be a way forward.
Oh yeah, definitely. Yeah, it's a big need. And I mean, the first time I saw a range was in 2012. Fran, one of my colleagues, friends, and co-workers, he was with me out on that contract in Kuwait, was Carnegie Mellon, I think, did an exercise thing with us out there. It was terrible. It was absolutely terrible. And it's no knock, Carnegie Mellon, if you're watching later, it's no knock against your range. It was just the wrong application. They didn't have any of the tools that we used out there. Their traffic was like pen testers in the environment throwing, but there was no other noise because you're not just going to have attackers. There's all kinds of other things that should be out there to represent real world. But anyway, I've been thinking about this since 2012, and when I go looking for open source, there's open source projects, but a range for training simulations, that's just not there. I wish it was.
Just one addition to it, and I think so. 2012, yes, that we didn't have a lot of the tooling we have today, so we tried something with the Docker Compose overlays, where we just have one overlay per tool, and you can just have this composable modular approach per tool. But I think obviously it falls apart when you need like the full thing. That's not powerful enough, especially if you want to add Windows to it as its own thing. So something along the lines of I think composability is the missing piece here. That would be
Yeah, I'm totally open to ideas and bouncing around discussions and things. So just come find me. I'll give you my email address, and it's got to be something. Thank you.